Most of this review was written in early 2019. Please take that into account for the rest of the video. I've wanted to make this video for a while now. I saw this game one day and instantly fell in love with how it looked. I didn't realize that when I bought it, it would be one of my favorite games to date. If you've never seen my content before, I try to make my videos as child-friendly as possible. This does not mean that if you are older, you won't get anything out of this. This just means that for this entire video, we'll have no swearing, as little grotesque violence as possible, and no political views. Before going ahead, there will be spoilers for the entire game. Bloodstained: Curse of the Moon is a game developed by Inti Creates in the style of the older Castlevania games. I played Bloodstained from start to finish multiple times in one sitting, and I still play this game regularly even after unlocking every mode and winning in every different way I could think of. Now, I only know the names of the main characters, and I had a great time playing the game and making up names for each of the bosses, and this review will use the names I called them, but I will try to use footage so you can see who I'm talking about. Finally, after all of that, we can begin. The game starts off with a man named Zangetsu, who is given the moon's curse by demons, staring at the moon and getting ready to kill every demon he can. You progress through an abandoned train station fighting monsters and demons until you reach a train, and after making your way to the front of the train, you'll face your first boss. I don't really have a name for this guy, but for this review, I'll call him Train Boss. Before we get to Train Boss, I'd like to talk about Zangetsu's gameplay. Zangetsu has a sword with very low range, but you'll get used to that quickly. Each character has sub-weapons they can use with weapon points that you can pick up from breaking lanterns throughout the game. Breaking orange lanterns can return health and weapon points, and breaking purple ones can give you new sub-weapons. Zangetsu starts with a ball and chain that can be thrown diagonally upwards in either direction. He'll also get two magic spells as sub-weapons, one of which throws a purple ball diagonally downwards in either direction, and the other will increase weapon damage. On to the Train Boss. He is a giant furnace robot thing that can grab coal from a different train car and pull it into his mouth to shoot fireballs. After doing enough damage, you'll be introduced to the boss's final attack, where he explodes and will kill you if you're low on health and out in the open. Luckily enough, he left his hand out so you can hide behind it to not take any damage. After killing the boss, you'll be introduced to Miriam, the second playable character. She has a whip which can be used for long-range attacks, and she has plenty of sub-weapons such as a battle axe which can slam down for massive damage, or 3 daggers thrown diagonally. She also has a sickle which can be thrown like a boomerang at enemies. She also has a single dagger she can throw in the direction she's facing. At this point in the game you can make a choice. Take Miriam with you on your adventure, ignore her completely, or kill her, and get a special power for Zangetsu. I'll get to these powers later, but for now I'm going to take her. On to the second level. Continuing on, you'll begin to descend into a cavern and eventually into a frozen cave. As you progress, you will see a flashing object blocked by icy walls. If you have Miriam, you can crouch and hit the left wall to break it, and Miriam can slide under and grab it. She is the only character with this ability. This is an upgrade, and there are several throughout the game that can upgrade your weapon points, capacity, health, and damage. Moving on, you'll reach the second boss, the Turtle. The Turtle has a few attacks that I wasn't prepared to deal with. He shoots bubbles from his hand in a line that you can duck under. Then he shoots more bubbles from his hand at the ceiling where there are 3 stalactites that will fall onto the battlefield and damage you if you aren't paying attention. Then you'll need to jump on the top of a stalactite when he stops shooting and over him when he charges at you. But it isn't over yet. He starts burrowing down at you with rocks flying out that can also hit you before slamming down into the ground. He can also create a bubble shield that can spin around him and stop you from damaging him. After doing enough damage, he'll do his final strike. He'll charge at you with all his might and you'll have to jump over him. There isn't any cover this time to protect you, so you'll have to time it right. After defeating him, you'll meet Alfred, the third playable character. He starts with a cane. Or a wand? Probably a cane. And he uses exclusively magic spells. My personal favorite is the one he starts with, a fire shield. It protects you from the arrows or really anything while doing damage to anything it touches. Also, he has an ice sword that flies in front of him, freezing anyone or anything in its path, including lanterns. Also, the soul double, which I think isn't worth it in any scenario. You'll notice there are green lanterns around, and if you break them, the only character who can pick them up is Alfred. This is a new spell for the insanely overpowered lightning ball. You can choose to take, kill, or ignore Alfred. But once again, I'm taking him. Level 3. You're in some ruins now. Throughout the level, you'll see sand falling through the cracks, and as you progress, you'll end up in quicksand. Later, you will enter into a lava room that was reminiscent of the Bowser fights in Mario. This isn't the boss room, just something I found interesting while playing. By this point, everything you've been learning will click and you'll know which character you should use for each encounter and how their sub-weapons work in tandem with each other. There is a section in the level where you can walk down some stairs and there will be an archer that will rapid fire his arrows at you, and the best way to deal with him, I think, is to use Alfred and the fire shield skill to walk up to him and bat him over the head with his cane. Some sub-weapons can carry over to other characters, like the fire shield, or Zangetsu's increased weapon damage. So if you switch characters while these are active, they'll stay active for a short time. After the rest of the level, you'll reach a long staircase leading down and fall into a treasure room filled with gold, coins, and treasures, but you'll only enjoy the view for a second, because the coins all come together to form the third boss, Robot Monopoly Man. This is an extremely unique boss fight, and I love it. He pushes coins to the wall, trying to crush you under them, and you can attack them and climb them to smack him in the head. After a couple of times, he'll put his hands together and smash the ground, throwing coins in the air and dropping enemies into the battlefield that can also be crushed by the coins he pushes. But you don't even have to hit his head. He's made of coins. When you attack the coins, he takes damage, so if you just destroy every coin he's pushing, he'll take more damage than just hitting him. Either way, after you beat him, he'll use his final strike. Coins will fall from the sky and you'll need to avoid them. Then the scenery changes from coins to skulls, and you'll meet the fourth and final playable character, Jeeble. He doesn't have sub-weapons like usual, but he can transform into a bat. While in bat form, your weapon points deplete. This means whenever you break a purple lantern, you'll always get a weapon point refill while playing as Jeeble. His weapon is different than the rest of the characters as he throws 3 bats at his enemies diagonally upwards, but can't hit small enemies. Level 4 starts you off in the ruins of a castle. Using Jeeble, you will be able to take shortcuts you wouldn't be able to otherwise. As you progress, you'll reach Frog Bridge. While walking on it, birds will fly in and drop frogs on you. The frogs are annoying because they jump back and forth, damaging you each time. Every time I've been through here, I've used Alfred's shield and ran through as fast as possible. I don't hate it, but it's one of the more annoying areas of the game. But hey, no more, right? A bit more climbing and you'll reach the top of the tower and your fourth boss, who I've deemed Knockoff Spyro. This boss is fun, but after beating him multiple times, you'll start to realize he's actually one of the easier ones unless you're trying to get Ultimate Zangetsu, but more on that later. The boss has 2 heads, one on top and one on the bottom. Bottom head only has 2 attacks, a fire breath and a bite if you get too close. The top head also has 2 attacks, fire breath and bubble breath. After wailing on both knockoffs, they will combine into one single dragon and have spikes on their bodies so you can't just hide at the bottom of the map. This is their final strike. They just need you to smack them again, but be careful because they have a more powerful fire breath. You'll need to jump down right above the spikes and wait for the breath to end and then jump because they move in a way that will stab you with the spikes if you aren't quick about it. Then just hit it a few more times and it dies. No more characters to talk about, so let's move on. Now you're on a boat. After killing a few enemies, you'll come up to the deck and see that it's raining. Keep this in mind because I'll come back to it. You'll go back inside and progress a little bit and come to a red door, similar to a boss door. This is the first mini-boss. It's a painting that flies around the room and swoops down after a couple of passes. If you're hit by it when it swoops, it will instantly kill you by trapping you inside the painting. The best way I've found to kill it is just use Jeeble because of how high his attacks hit. Then just jump or fly over the painting when it swoops. I think this is a really cool fight, even if it is a little easy. Moving on, you'll come out again and immediately notice something is different. You're now sliding when idle and you move faster one way than the other, and the rain animation is different because the wind is blowing harder now. I really like the progression of this level and how it changes the further you go. You will begin to climb the masts of the ship and jump between them to continue. This platforming gives you a challenge you haven't had yet and makes you calculate your jumps, unless you take the easy way and just use Jeeble's bat form. Regardless, you will continue climbing until you're almost at the top of the tallest mast. You'll see the first green lantern. I didn't take it my first time, but I'll always take it now. You'll see what I mean in a second. 5th boss time. I call him Bird Thor cosplay. His attacks consist of throwing what I assume to be lightning rods at the ground and lightning strikes them, creating a barrier for you to stand between as he either blows wind at you, which will knock you off if you aren't crouching, or coming in for a backstab on you, throwing lightning in front of him. Now, word of advice. I didn't know you could break the lightning rods until I had beaten the game like 5 times. You can, and it helps a lot depending on your situation. Also, if you are knocked off by his wind, you can quickly switch to Jeeble and fly back onto the platform. He will fly around the mast, similar to the painting from earlier, allowing some easy hits. But we aren't doing that. No messing around today. Remember the Green Lantern? Watch this. This is why I'll pick Alfred over any other character for this fight. For Bird Boy's final strike, he'll stand on the top of the mast and charge up, breaking it in the process. Then he'll come in for a backstab with the lightning from earlier and fly up and shoot lightning bolts on the edge of the mast and cause a massive lightning strike in the middle, leaving only a small area for you to stand in to avoid both attacks. Now that he's finished, on to level 6. Level 6 starts you off in a dungeon with some of the most odd-looking creatures you'll find in the game. You'll notice the bloodstains smeared across the walls and floors throughout the level. Keep this in mind. This is one of the shortest levels in the game, but there are a lot of details scattered through that you probably won't notice on your first playthrough, and maybe not even during subsequent playthroughs. I personally really like the long hallway leading to the boss, but I didn't like it for the first few times that I played it. With all of that, let's talk about the sixth boss. After the long hallway, you'll enter a room to meet a woman in a bathtub filled with blood. She dives under and comes out in a bright red dress and has an umbrella. For this reason, I've named her Bloody Mary Poppins. She floats in the air and has 3 umbrellas that move from wall to wall, and when you hit them, they stop, allowing you to jump on top of them to reach her. She can send a ball projectile at you. She can drop a ball that creates spikes across the entire floor. Finally, she can summon a blood rain which will damage you throughout the duration of the fight, so you'll have to hide under the umbrellas. After you smack her enough, she'll use her final strike, a blood tornado. I actually didn't know you could block this attack until researching for this video, but if you climb on top of the umbrellas and hit her before she hits you, you won't take any damage. Level 7 is next. I have a love-hate relationship with this level. Not really hate, but there isn't really a better analogy for this. I've always remembered this as one of my favorite levels, but as time has progressed, I've wondered why. This level, to anyone who's played it, is the main platforming level. You're in a library, and there are books that pop in and out as platforms to stand on, and they shake the telegraph when they will appear and disappear. Then the evil frogs come back. I really don't like the frogs. Why are there more of them? Why are they in the library? I don't know. Then, you have the treadmill room. I really dislike the treadmill room. There's quite a few people who dislike the game because of the platforming. I can understand, as a game in 2018, that if you are unable to move in the air while jumping, that it may be frustrating to play. This doesn't bother me for most of the game, but then this room shows up and then I get it. You have to platform across a room of just treadmill floors while being attacked by enemies. Sometimes you'll just miss and then you're out of a character unless you want to kill everyone on your team and use a life. I tend to just use Jeebel's bat form and fly over everything and hope I don't get hit, because if you take damage while in the air as the bat form, you just stop mid-air and change back, which most of the time will end in a death. For everything else, I really enjoy. The scenery's nice, there aren't any more frogs, the music track is enjoyable, I really like the disappearing platforms, and there are also moving platform rooms that I like. After the frogs and the treadmills, you'll reach a red door. Mini-boss number 2, another painting. Nothing really to say here that I haven't already said. After a few more rooms, you're at the boss. This boss is a part of the love side. I think this is a really unique boss. I call him Mega Mewtwo. If you know what Mega Mewtwo looks like, you know why. A few books pop out, and he shocks the walls, floor, and ceiling, forcing you to jump onto them. He jumps to the wall and shoots projectiles at you that ricochet around the room and aims for all but one of the books, and jumps around the room attacking extremely fast until he appears above the book he didn't aim for and slams down with an electric shock. Then he'll just shoot lightning out of his tail and you'll have to duck under it. After damaging him enough, it's time for the final strike again. This is just the aiming part of his usual attack, but there's an extra book above the rest. Then, 4 of them slam into that book at the end. Time to move to the final level. It's all built up to this. Time to fight the powerful demon Zangetsu sensed earlier. As soon as the level starts, the music builds up almost as to say, this is it. This is the end of the adventure. And the level reaffirms this by having a magic swarm of glass shards break up the level as you progress. Right near the beginning of the level, you have to traverse down a long staircase as the shards get closer and closer until they almost get you. The enemies you'll fight here just look really cool, almost as to say these are the strongest demons protecting the boss. The next room after the first fight has you needing the platform to avoid the glass shards. Though, if you use Alfred, you can use his fire shield to avoid taking any damage. As you continue through the level, you'll fight more demons and jump across more platforms until you reach a room with a beautiful stained glass background and platforms leading up. Glass shards will chase you to the top as the sound gets louder and drowning out the music in the background, giving you a feeling that you might not make it to the top. It's then you see that everything that has come before this was just a test. Your final challenge is to cross Frog Bridge 2.0. All hope is seemingly lost. How can you take any more frogs? But then, almost as if by a miracle, it clicked. Alfred is the key. Using the fire shield, you make it to the boss door. It's all come to this. You beat the frogs. There can't be a harder challenge, right? This boss can be extremely difficult. I had to take breaks on this for one subsequent playthrough that I'll describe later. I don't really have a name for this boss. Never thought of a clever name for it, so I just called it the final boss, or the moon boss. The boss's attacks are telegraphed by her hands that will shine either pink or green based on which attack she will use. No matter what color she chooses, glass shards will attack in one of a few different patterns. She will summon green spheres to circle around near her and then spin back outward at you. If she chooses pink, she will summon pink spheres that will circle around very close to her to block most of the damage and then spin back out. After a difficult battle, She will scream, shattering all of the stained glass behind her, and fly upwards. Then the floor will raise and you'll ride it like an elevator to the very top of the castle. She will fly in front of the moon and absorb its power. Time for Phase 2. She has new attacks telegraphed by the moon shape above her head. If it's more of a fuller moon, she will use purple crescent attacks that swing at you and can be jumped over. If it's a crescent shape, then they will be yellow crescent attacks that move closer to you while spinning. You'll almost have to attack the yellow ones, but I'd advise attacking both of them, as they give weapon points when destroyed. After either attack, though, she'll open portals that send spears through with eyes on them that when attacked turn into platforms to jump onto to break a blue lantern of weapon points. But at the same time, she shoots a blue laser that destroys them that you will have to jump over. She only takes damage in this form from attacking the moon shape above her head. You can jump from the taller platform to attack her with a weapon. After taking a significant amount of damage, she will use a new move where she has 6 flashing lights come up around you and a giant blood moon above her. The flashing lights become lasers that you will need to stand in the middle to avoid, and after 2 seconds the lasers will come up a little and then go back down. Then she will slam the moon into the center of the tower and it will explode into a similar beam from the Bird Thor cosplayer's final strike, and you will have to move to the edge of the tower to avoid it. Eventually, she'll be defeated. No final strike. As the boss's body is destroyed, a void is opened, and the power of it attempts to kill the heroes. Zangetsu runs in front of them and blocks it from attacking them as he absorbs it and is consumed by the darkness he once sought to destroy, and as his consciousness faded, he hoped that he had saved his new friends. At the end of his story, he becomes what he once hated, as he becomes the new Dark Emperor. His allies now realize what they must do. They know they must end his life, but wonder if they can still save his soul. That was the end of the normal playthrough, but after finishing that, you unlock Nightmare Mode, which is just a fancy way of saying, play through the game again for a different ending. The only differences are that you don't have Zangetsu, but you start with everyone from the beginning, and the bosses are slightly different, but not enough to really add anything to the discussion. However, when you reach level 8, you are instead introduced to level 9. You will begin in the same room as level 8, but it's very different now. For starters, everything is dark and there's a red wasteland outside. Also, there aren't glass shards destroying everything this time. You will go down the same set of stairs and see that it's different. There's an altar at the middle of the room and 3 colored doors surrounding it. The 3 characters will split up into each room. Starting with Miriam, you'll go through a couple of rooms while platforming and fighting demons until you reach a mini-boss, who is a flying fire demon. He isn't really any different than your normal enemies that you fought 100 times, so you shouldn't have any trouble. After beating him, you'll switch to Alfred. Same applies to him and Jeeble, except for the mini-bosses are different. You'll all return to the altar. You'll walk down a large staircase and see that the moon has been eclipsed. You'll prepare for the final battle and enter. You see a hooded figure on a throne with a bowl in his hands, and he throws the bowl at the ground, smashing it. He then throws a sword in the air and catches it, mutating his arm into a scythe. Dropping the hood, revealing himself to be Zangetsu. He throws 2 daggers at Alfred and Jeeble, stunning them and leaving only Miriam to stand against him. Zangetsu will dash back and forth across the floor and you'll have to jump over him. He will jump onto one of the walls and do one of 3 attacks. One being that he will use the ball and chain to pull himself to the other wall, dropping the purple spheres along the way which will explode into beams of energy shooting upwards, while he attacks in a crescent shape towards you. Another being that he will mutate his arm into a dragon shooting fire at you, and Alfred will run in to shield you from the damage and hold it back so you can attack. Finally, he will jump into the air and throw his sword into the middle of the room, and Jeeble will jump up and turn into a bat platform, allowing you to stand on him, as the sword creates spikes that cover the floors and walls. While in this stage, he will hover above the sword and let you damage him. After he takes enough damage, Zangetsu will jump into the air and prepare his final strike. He mutates the scythe to make it bigger and creates 6 demon skulls that shoot fireballs at Alfred, who is charging a spell to stop him before he can kill you. Jeeble takes one side while Miriam takes the other, blocking every fireball with their own attacks until finally, Alfred is charged and ready. He creates 6 soul doubles that all shoot the lightning ball at Zangetsu, finally defeating their fallen friend. The scene then transitions to the cliff like last time, but unlike last time, the moon has disappeared, and you see Zangetsu's soul ascending from the castle, finally freed. The sun then rises, ending the era of darkness. As the credits prepare to roll, the game explains that they failed to save their friend's life, and that it will weigh heavily on their hearts. But they hope that the land, and his soul, will know true peace. I assume this is how most people will play the game, so I've explained this in the mindset of a first-time player. There are other endings you can get that you can interpret as canon over the ending that I've explained. The bad ending is earned after killing each of the allies and then beating the game. Zangetsu is consumed by the darkness and reigns as the new Dark Emperor. The solo ending is earned by beating the game as only Zangetsu after killing at least one ally and ignoring at least one. Zangetsu kills Grimory and the night turns to day. As Zangetsu watches the sun rise, he thinks about how easy the archdemon Grimory was to defeat. Another night like this one was all but certain. A similar ending can be obtained by killing Jeeble and taking Miriam and Alfred. Another ending is earned by beating the game ignoring everyone. No allies, no extra abilities. Zangetsu defeats Grimory, and then Miriam, Alfred, and Jeeble all run in to save Zangetsu from being attacked by the darkness, and are killed by it. Zangetsu reflects on the battle while he watches the castle fall and the sun shortly after. He now realizes that the world and everything in it are created by Grimory, and he alone has to live in it because of the curse of the moon. Zangetsu thinks about how he didn't ally with Miriam, Alfred, and Jeeble. Even though he didn't, they risked their lives to save him, and died for it. He knows the world will restart, and thinks that maybe next time he should ally with them. Instead of saying the end or bad end, this time it says Fin, leading some to speculate that this is the canon ending because Zangetsu will continue to live this torturous life until the curse is broken or he dies. There are plenty of other things to do in the game. After doing normal mode and nightmare mode, we get to one of the modes I mentioned earlier, the ultimate Zangetsu playthrough. Now, in order to unlock him, you must kill each of the other characters in a single playthrough on normal mode and beat the game. When you kill a character, you will absorb their power and unlock a new ability for Zangetsu. Killing Miriam will give you a new jump attack with larger range, Alfred will give you a double jump, and Jeeble will give you the ability to run. This will also give you a different ending, and when you get to the final boss, you'll have to hold the attack button down and charge your attack against her. After beating the game, you'll have a new playthrough available, Ultimate Mode. In Ultimate Mode, you have Ultimate Zangetsu, and you can still recruit Miriam, Alfred, and Jeeble to your cause. Ultimate Zangetsu has a new attack as well. You'll flash similarly to the charge attack you used to kill the final boss to unlock him, and then release the button for one of the strongest attacks in the game, Charge Slash. You can also play a completely separate game mode that unlocks after playing 3 different endings, Boss Rush Mode, which you can find in the main menu. Boss Rush Mode is your typical Boss Rush mode, though easier than some that I've played. You only fight the normal mode bosses, and after each one you are sent back to a weapon room with 2 hearts and every single sub-weapon in the game. There is a catch though. After you take something from the room, you can't get another of the same item for that attempt. Another thing I learned while researching for this is that there are cheat codes for this mode. You can add Ultimate Zangetsu instead of using normal Zangetsu, and you can set it so that the weapons respawn. I won't say the codes here, but just search them on the internet if you're interested. Finally, I'd like to mention the difficulties of the game. You have Casual and Veteran. Casual gives you unlimited lives and has no knockback from damage taken in the air. Veteran does have the knockback and only gives you limited lives. The footage you're seeing in this video is on Casual difficulty, though I'd recommend playing Veteran at least once just to try it out. Now, we have finally reached the end of the story and extra content portion, but we aren't done. If you've played the game, you know that some of the rooms I've described, you may not have been through. Every level has differing paths to the end. The game also has a button in the pause menu called Curse of the Moon, which will let you replay each level if you'd like to play a specific level without playing the whole game over again. Personally, I love the music in this game. I've played this game so many times that I can tell each individual level by the song, which I think speaks volumes about how well everything goes together so nicely. Listen to these on top of the gameplay. If I haven't convinced you yet, the composers have done little things you wouldn't catch on your first time through, or maybe your 50th time through. I've played this game countless times and just recently caught this leitmotif. How cool is that? Each level song gives it an extra little personality that I really think was needed. I'm getting a little ahead of myself here, but the music in this game is a remix of the music for Ritual of the Night, which leads me to my next point. This isn't even the main game. Everything I've talked about is wonderful in its own right, but this game was a stretch goal for a Kickstarter. The actual game is called Bloodstained, Ritual of the Night, and released on June 18th, 2019. It is developed by Artplay, of which Koji Igarashi, the assistant director for Castlevania Symphony of the Night, is the co-creator. Ritual of the Night has Miriam as the main character and is more story-focused than this game. Bloodstained Curse of the Moon is a spin-off title in the Bloodstained universe that is considered non-canon for the most part. This should not stop you from enjoying this game all the same, though. When I first played this game, I thought this was it. I was extremely delighted to find out that I was wrong. I would like to thank every person who had a hand in creating this game. You've done an amazing job. In June 2020, they announced Bloodstained Curse of the Moon 2, and maybe one day I can talk more about it. As for Bloodstained Curse of the Moon, this was my favorite game of 2018. A feat until I played it I thought was going to be a tough choice between several great games. I enjoyed Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, but no matter how good it may be, I'll always have Curse of the Moon. Thank you so much for watching all of the way until the end. This video took so long to come out, we even got a sequel. One day I may talk more about it. This is by far the most time-consuming video I've ever done. If you've enjoyed, please consider subscribing. I may do more videos like this if you guys like it.